Hi, I'm Jamie Laing, and welcome to Great Company. What is the meaning of life? Look, I think it's always going to be your meaning, and that's the paradox in that phrase. We think of the meaning of life as something that's out there rather than primarily in here. We need to discover our own meanings of life, and really what we mean by that is, what are my deepest sources of satisfaction? Some of the most pleasant people to be around are those who, perhaps through lots of trials, have understood what is meaningful for them. We recognize them. They have a little twinkle in their eye. You think, this person is free. They're inwardly free because they know roughly what they're up to. It's funny, I'm in a real process with myself, and I'm going to use this as more of a therapy session towards myself, if that's all right. I used to find it incredibly hard to sit with myself. I don't so much anymore. Okay, fine, let's be honest. I think a lot of us, maybe lots of people listening, find it very hard to sit with ourselves. We distract ourselves all the time, and I'm in a real position now of trying to lean into what I would describe as the ordinary. I spoke to someone once and I said, I just constantly am looking for exciting things. And they said, that's not a good thing. You need to adjust. Life is boring, and it's important to sit with that and sit in that silence. I still find that very difficult, and I think it's getting worse and worse as we get older because of social media and everything else. I'm a big fan of the concept of the ordinary, only because it's actually extraordinary. Most of the time, if we think of an ordinary life, an ordinary job, people recoil from that word. We have a very hierarchical system of values, really, which is that the extraordinary is good and the ordinary is boring and awful. But I think that some of the most beautiful moments are those when people can accept the ordinary. If you think of some of your happiest moments, maybe in childhood or in a relationship with a friend, there are often things that are very ordinary. We sat down at the kitchen table and we drew some sunflowers, and it was nice. As a child, or even as an adult, that can be a beautiful moment. Some of the greatest works of art actually depict very ordinary moments. We're on a hunt for things that are ecstatic, and though they have their place, we can't live on the summit. We belong in the lowlands, and making ourselves at home, there is one of the great challenges. It's interesting you say about sitting with yourself. I think all listeners will probably have this issue as well. Sometimes we're sitting on a train and we think, I can't bear to be here. Give me a distraction. We want to put headphones on. We want to read something. A thought is chasing us. The difficult thing is that when we say we're suffering from anxiety, what is anxiety? Anxiety is often a worry that doesn't know itself. We're fleeing from it, and it gets worse and worse because we're running away so much. The difficult but really important thing to do is to turn around and go, okay, I'm going to be brave. I'm just going to think about what I'm actually worried about. This is where a pen and paper can come in handy in a quiet room. Another very useful exercise a therapist taught me is automatic writing. You set yourself the challenge of, let's call it, word downloading, your brain just writing whatever is in your mind for 2 minutes. You just write, where am I now? What is my mood now? And what tends to happen is that you find out things about yourself. But how do you separate yourself from not thinking? Because what you're saying is don't think, but think. How do you do that? That's right. Most of the time, we become enemies to ourselves because we're so concerned with seeming normal to ourselves. We're sitting there with our own mind and we think, well, I should be having this sort of thought because after all, I'm a sort of normal person. But the truth is, we're all far weirder than we can acknowledge. And in that weirdness are some very important realizations. Take love and hate. We don't love and hate as it's entirely, in inverted commas, normal to do so. Take our feelings towards our parents, for example. Many people feel an incredible desire to be very loyal to their parents. It's a very natural impulse. But actually, people's true feelings towards their parents tend to be colored by a far wider range of emotions. We could say that a bad thing, that we shouldn't allow that into consciousness. But if we don't, there could be a buildup of anxiety. You know the old thing where sometimes you catch yourself in a rage with a household object? The drawer doesn't open and you think, damn it, why doesn't it open? And you pull it with violence. You think, what am I so angry about? It's unlikely to be the drawer. It's probably not the drawer or the milk bottle that won't open. What tends to happen there is that somewhere along the way, the source of your true anger has become foreign to you. You've lost touch with it. Why? Normally, because you feel you don't have the right to that emotion. I'm not advocating for random fury with everyone, obviously. Anger needs to be contained, but the acknowledgement of anger is a different and important thing. You might find that someone at work really angered you. I'm not saying you always have to tell them, but for you to tell yourself is really important. Similarly with sadness. Something saddens us, and we don't know that it has. And the thing that we know as depression, if you look at it clinically, tends to be a sadness or a trauma that has forgotten itself. The twin of depression is what they call mourning. In mourning, something or someone has been lost, and you go into a period of sadness that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. In depression, you're also sad about something, but you don't know what it is. You've literally lost touch with it, and therefore it can feel endless. This is the mind-blowing thing. Our minds don't understand themselves. It's so odd because we have a name and an identity, and if I ask you a question, most of the time you can tell me what you think. But as the questions get deeper, you often won't actually know. I don't know quite why I'm doing what I'm doing. I don't know why I respond this way. These things are quite foreign, and the answers take months, years, decades to bubble up to the surface. Self-awareness is one of the greatest challenges. Much of our mental troubles come down, ultimately, to failures of self-awareness. What are we really anxious about? What are we really sad about? It's so interesting. Those repressed feelings, I find it very easy to have road rage because I don't get angry in my everyday life. I don't feel I'm allowed to get angry at a friend or a loved one, but I can get angry at someone I'm never going to see again on the road. Well, let's try a little bit of light psychotherapy. In your childhood, what was anger like? Were you allowed to be angry? I was one of these children who was like a bouncy ball. You threw me into a room and I'd bounce all over the place, so I think I was dubbed a naughty child. I was so frustrated that I couldn't communicate in the right way. My anger came out in tantrums, but when I threw a tantrum, I was put into another room. So then I learned I couldn't scream or shout or express emotion because I was a nuisance, right? Or one might ask, what was it about the adults around you that made your difficult emotions so difficult for them? Why did they need you to be a certain way, perhaps with quite a lot of force? It's not a choice, but a necessity for many children to learn a specific role to survive. I've noticed, just empirically, that people who are very funny often grew up in circumstances that were not funny at all, where humor was a survival skill to diffuse the rage and difficult moods of people around them. As Jimmy Carr once perfectly put it, people always ask me if I'm depressed. You should ask if my parents were depressed. The wit of the child is often there to ward off the parent's depression. Every child enters the world and is honed by nature to figure out, what do I need to do here to survive psychologically? In some families, you need to excel. In others, you need to fail, perhaps because of parental envy. In some, you need to be witty. And in some, you need to be invisible. So then, what does love mean? Adult romantic relationships are a kind of litmus test of our emotional development. And that's why many of us find them very, very hard. They're a moment where your past catches up with your present. The way we love as adults owes a huge amount to how we experienced love as children. You could say that what we're looking for in adult relationships is often a sense of familiarity, not so much happiness. People say, I'm looking to be happy. Steady. Maybe not. Maybe what you're really looking for is a sense of familiarity, which might be suffering, neglect, or feeling that you're not that important to somebody. This is why people make such, as it were, strange choices. You set up two good friends on a date, thinking they should match, and afterwards they say, really nice person, and you know it's not going anywhere. Perhaps what they're struggling to say is, this person is too nice to give me the feeling of suffering that I need in order to feel I'm in love. This is why relationships are so complicated. We are on a track to recreate patterns of suffering that we don't understand, unconsciously repeating them. We used to get into relationships because our parents or society arranged them. Now, we have relationships by instinct, but those instincts are so much more complicated than we think. We're not merely pulled by a desire to be happy. We're pulled by a desire to rework the challenges of our past. Freud's view was that we're looking to recreate painful situations from our childhoods, but give them a better ending. So, if we are optimistic, people aren't invested in suffering forever. They're interested in finding a way out of the pattern. But they need to be close to that pattern in order to feel that thing we call desire. That idea that we're not trying to be happy, we're looking for familiarity, is wild. My wife, for example, her parents loved her. Her dad would come home and she would dance on his shoes. She has this immense inner confidence, but she can also be quite avoidant of affection. She doesn't need it when I want it all the time. From my side, with boarding school and divorced parents, I understand being drawn to that rejection. But from her side, what is she looking for? It's interesting. She received warm love, but now, when you come close, she pushes you away. That suggests a pattern of avoidance. Even though she had love, maybe there were complexities. Maybe you picked her because she rejects you just as much as you need to be rejected to feel you're in love. If she didn't reject you at all, you might lose interest. It's possible you've worked out a happy medium where, in classic attachment theory, you're just anxious enough for her love and she's just avoidant enough that it works. She said that her dad used to smother her with kisses and that used to annoy her. Okay, so maybe she experienced love as a little bit invasive. True love is correct attunement to somebody. If someone wants to be alone, you let them be alone. It's possible she experienced her father as forcing affection on her that didn't always respect what she was actually feeling, so she's learned to push away. So how do we make sure we're picking the right partner? Extreme modesty is a good starting point. We have to acknowledge we'll almost certainly make some mistakes. The perfect relationship does not exist. A relationship is always an encounter between two very broken people who are just trying to get by. So, one of the first questions you should ask on a date is, how are you mad? We're all mad. The question is, do you have any insight into your madness? It's fine to be mad. I'll tell you how I'm mad. You'll tell me how you're mad. And we won't make such a taboo of it. And in an argument, how do you communicate? The number one way to unwind a tense standoff is always to give your partner a sense that you're listening. You don't have to agree, but you have to listen. A simple way is to reflect back what they're saying. So, I'm hearing that when you went to work, your boss did this, and it left you feeling this way. The moment they feel heard, they are then ready to hear you, and you're on a virtuous circle. But love can be really painful. How do you navigate heartbreak? First, acknowledge that it is one of the worst things that can befall you. The people who break our hearts really badly are not horrible people. They're the nice people. The ones who are kind, who understand our pains, who are our best friends. And then one day, they go elsewhere. Grief is the price we pay for love. It's kindness that undoes us. In heartbreak, we lay ourselves bare to someone, and when they go, we are no one anymore. We have to recreate ourselves. In the Jewish tradition, when somebody dies, you're allowed to mourn for a year. We need a similar version for this, because it is also a death. There's a quote, "Everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing themselves." It's so true. What we should be doing throughout our lives is becoming the best version of ourselves, because that's what life is really about. And how do you do that? You probably need the help of other people. It can't just be done alone. Working on yourself actually requires an attitude of love, not romantic love, but care, attention, sympathy, and compassion. I've had bouts of really bad anxiety. The scary thing is you think it's never going to end. How do you keep going? What could be tremendously helpful is to broaden the sense of what is normal. It's far broader than we think. Often, people get a double layer of punishment. Not only am I anxious, but I'm anxious that I'm anxious. If you broaden the picture and realize many of us are more anxious and sadder than we discuss, it helps. That's what good friendships are, for arenas where we can go. Anyone else been weeping on the floor? We know life's more complicated than the adverts say. When we think of mental ill health, we used to picture craziness. Now we're realizing that mental ill health is just states we all know about, but without the brakes being applied. It's runaway anxiety, runaway sadness, runaway self-hatred. An ordinary person might think, I don't much like myself today. A mentally unwell person thinks that, but can't stop. There's no pause. So, can you teach yourself to put a brake on? Think about physical health. If you went to a personal trainer, they'd say it's going to take a long time, maybe 6 months or 3 years of consistent practice. It's the same for the mind. We have to put in place certain practices, finding a helpful person who can listen, making time for ourselves to catch up with the thoughts we're running from. The less time you make, the more the backlog of unthought thoughts presses against the door of consciousness, giving you more anxiety, which makes you run faster, until often there is a breakdown. A breakdown is really the mind saying, enough. There is too much that has not been thought about. That's why breakdowns can be breakthroughs. You have written so many books and are fascinated by all these questions. What has led you to do what you do? Let's take the principle that everybody does stuff not because they have total choice, but because something is driving them. Very often, people are compensating for or reacting to something. Someone spending all their time trying to work out what on earth's going on emotionally is probably reacting to a sense of chaos. Just like someone who makes a huge amount of money is probably escaping a feeling of poverty. I think I experienced a world that didn't seem to make much sense to me, and therefore I've been trying desperately to find the sense ever since, to calm myself down by untying knots. Ultimately, we're all going to die having only scratched the surface of who we are. There's this old medieval idea that life is like a bird that flies in from a cold, through a great hall with a fire, and then out the other side. It's an instant of illumination and warmth, but it's blackness on both sides. We have a flash of illumination, but most of the time, we're really in darkness. I saw a clip of a terminally ill young woman. She was asked, "Are you not angry at life?" She said, "The way I look at it is this. If someone told me I could go to a place called Earth and experience love, happiness, hate, cuddles, getting drunk, go to the park, all these things, but only for a short while, would I want to do it? Of course I would." Even though her time was short, at least she experienced those things. It's an amazing way to look at life. It's not so much about lengthening your life, but deepening your life. This journey, this flight through the illuminated hall, is all we have. It's messy, confusing, and often painful. But within that chaos lies the extraordinary opportunity for connection, for understanding, and for a profound, quiet joy. The goal isn't to arrive at a destination of perfection, but to walk the path of self-awareness with as much courage and compassion as we can muster. It's about learning to sit with the silence, to face the thoughts we run from, and to offer ourselves and others the grace to be beautifully, imperfectly human. In a world that prizes certainty, perhaps the greatest strength is to admit we are all just figuring it out, and the greatest gift is to do it together. If this conversation has resonated with you, if you're on a similar journey of discovery, we invite you to join our community. Subscribe to Great Company for more discussions that delve into the heart of a human experience. Let's continue this journey together.